You ever notice how saving the planet got really, really expensive? Right around the time that billionaires realized they could slap a solar panel on a tax break and call it an innovation. So let's talk about America's big move in the climate cash game. This was the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. It was cheered. It sounds important. It sounds adult. It sounds like it's about inflation. It's right there in the name, right? Wrong. This thing is basically a climate spending bill in disguise. $783 billion in total. This bill was sold to the public like some giant leap for climate justice, like it's going to stop hurricanes with hugs and icebergs with equity. But in practice, it's Wall Street in a windbreaker handing out tax credits to the same names. It's about leverage. It's about using fear to consolidate influence, redirect public funds, and create a new class of winners under the banner of doing good. Hey guys, as we've heard for years and years, the planet is on fire, the oceans are boiling, and if you don't drive a car powered by a unicorn breath, you're personally responsible for every hurricane from now until the sun explodes. Climate panic is officially in fashion still. It is a trend that will not die. But behind the hashtags, the screaming headlines, and the ugly windmills that kill thousands of birds every day, and they ruin your view, there's a less convenient truth. This is a trillion-dollar industry, and a lot of people are cashing in on your naivety. Today's question isn't simply, is climate change real? That's all anybody wants to argue about. It's who's getting rich off of this panic. You know, it's the left that loves to yell at you, and they yell, climate change denier. They get all mad, like it's some sort of mic drop. Even if you question the money, the motives, or the results, you're basically trying to melt the ice caps yourself. But maybe, just maybe, the people being lied to the most are the ones screaming the loudest. Because while they're busy virtue signaling and parroting hashtags, their own side is cashing the checks and rigging the system, not their opposition. So if you're one of those people who laughs and says, you think climate change is a hoax, how cute, well, maybe you should stick around for this show, because I'm about to show you what the real hoax actually looks like. This is Stay in the Great Podcast. It is August the 6th, 2025. Let's roll. You ever notice how saving the planet got really, really expensive? Right around the time that billionaires realized they could slap a solar panel on a tax break and call it an innovation. It's funny how that works. One minute we're all separating our paper from plastic, feeling good about buying overpriced metal straws. And the next, we're watching governments throw billions of dollars at companies with names like Solar Integrity Futures Group that just so happen to have a battalion of lobbyists and VIP parking at every congressional hearing. Climate change used to be a conversation about science, sustainability, and maybe not microwaving our atmosphere. But lately, it's kind of turned into a climate cash. The new gold rush, if you will. But instead of miners, we've got hedge fund managers, ESG consultants, and corporate execs in bamboo dress shirts doing good for the planet while sipping $14 matcha in self-driving Teslas. Here's the real kicker. Nobody's saying that we shouldn't improve how we treat the environment. I'm not out here advocating that we torch a rainforest just to roast a hot dog or to make s'mores. But if we're going to spend hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars on the issue, shouldn't we ask the obvious question? Who's actually getting rich off of this? Because, spoiler alert, it's not the folks patching their roofs with duct tape in Louisiana or the guy in Ohio still using a swamp cooler from 1986. It's corporations, donors, and green nonprofits that somehow always end up first in line at the money buffet. The environmental movement started as grassroots. Now it's just greed in a green suit. So let's talk about America's big move in the climate cash game. This was the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. It was cheered. It sounds important. It sounds adult. It sounds like it's about inflation. It's right there in the name, right? Wrong. This thing is basically a climate spending bill in disguise. $783 billion in total, with over half going to energy and climate initiatives. And I use the word initiative very lightly because a lot of this cash doesn't go to scientists in lab coats or coastal towns building sea walls. No, it goes to, brace yourself, corporations. Let's roll the credits. Occidental Petroleum, raking in carbon capture subsidies. Tesla, we're familiar with, soaking up electric vehicle credits like a sponge. Even Jared Kushner's company, Mosaic, is cashing in on solar investment schemes. But sure, tell me more about how this thing is helping the little guy. I'm going to throw you a curveball here. It might piss some of you off, but it's what I do. I'm not blaming the corporation. I'm not blaming Jared Kushner. I'm not blaming Elon. I'm not blaming these guys. If you wrote a bill that handed me tax breaks for hugging a tree in a business suit, I'd cash in too. Elon and Jared, the oil companies, they're just playing the game that they were handed. They're not the problem. The real problem is the people still pretending this is some utopian mission to save polar bears while they ignore the spreadsheets. You want to fix the system, you start by admitting that it's broken. And stop acting shocked when smart people exploit the exact rules that you give them. By the way, let's not forget, this whole thing was called the Inflation Reduction Act. You know, because Biden said that it would help fix inflation. Meanwhile, inflation hit 40-year highs, grocery bills doubled, gas prices exploded. We all know this. And everyone still nodded at it like the title was a guarantee. Nobody stopped to ask why a climate bill was dressed in economic drag. They just trusted the label like it was organic fruit at Whole Foods. No questions asked. This bill was sold to the public like some giant leap for climate justice, like it's going to stop hurricanes with hugs and icebergs with equity. But in practice, it's Wall Street in a windbreaker handing out tax credits to the same names that were already winning before the first solar grant went live. Don't get me wrong, I like the idea of cleaner energy. I'm not debating that. I'm not here to argue that we should go full Mad Max and live off diesel fumes. But if you think that a $60,000, probably minimum, electric vehicle and a subscription solar roof are suddenly going to reach working families in Detroit or East LA, you haven't read the fine print. This isn't a green revolution that we're experiencing. It's a corporate rebate program with better PR. Here's the part they don't advertise when they roll out these big green programs. The money almost never lands where they say it will. The story is they sell these bills as a lifeline for underserved communities, for the working class, for climate justice. AOC is a champion at this. It sounds nice until you follow the cash. Take the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, $20 billion of public money meant to boost low-income neighborhoods with better energy solutions. It sounds like something that might help a single mom in Detroit upgrade her home or give an old neighborhood in Phoenix a modern cooling system. But where does it actually go? To green banks and nonprofits that have slick branding and plenty of lobbyists and projects that wealthy neighborhoods were already doing. The same thing happens with tax credits. Do you want to guess who's cashing in on home efficiency credits and heat pump subsidies? It's not the folks with the leaky windows and duct tape roofs. Nope, it's households making $100,000 plus a year. 66% of them, in fact, claimed those credits last year. Over in the UK, 40% of their version of these subsidies went straight to high-income families who didn't need a dime of help. Here's the truth. A homeowner in Silicon Valley who's already installing a $30,000 solar roof doesn't need your tax dollars to go green, but that's where the money lands. Meanwhile, average families are told to be grateful for their $50 rebates on light bulbs and a nice pamphlet about recycling. So when lefty politicians get up there and pound the podium about climate equity, forgive me for rolling my fucking eyes. If this is equity, then I'm Howard Stern, who just got canceled. And again, don't get this twisted. I'm not hating on the guy in Silicon Valley installing solar panels and taking all the credit. He'd be dumb not to. I'm looking at the folks who push the narrative, who scream climate justice like it's a mic drop, and then act shocked when billion-dollar banks and six-figure homeowners walk off with the prize money. And then you blame the wrong side for catering to billionaires. You wanted a revolution. What you got was a rebate program for the upper crust, and you still think the system's working. Let's talk about these so-called green banks. They sound like some charming, eco-friendly institution that gives low-interest loans to help grandma put solar panels on her farmhouse. In reality, it's another funnel, just dressed in leaves and buzzwords. Green banks in places like Connecticut, New York, and California use limited public funds to leverage private capital. Translation, they take taxpayer money, mix it with Wall Street cash, and then invest it in projects that, surprise, surprise, usually benefit people already holding all the cards. It's climate finance meets country club access. Now, in theory, that's supposed to scale impact. In practice, it scales profit. Their profit. Public risk, private reward. If you've heard that before, it's because we've played this game. And spoiler, the house always wins. Then there's ESG investing, environmental, social, and governance. Sounds noble, right? Like your money saving whales while feeding orphans and planting trees. Here's the catch. ESG funds hit $18.4 trillion globally in 2021. And most of them, they're doing about as much good for the planet as a plastic straw ban at a yacht club. Why? Because greenwashing is a big business. Companies slap on a green label, hire a sustainability officer, and boom, they qualify. It doesn't matter if they're strip mining lithium in Chile or flying CEOs to climate summits on private jets. As long as the slide deck is pretty and there's a windmill in the background photo, everybody claps. And look, I'll say it again. I've said it multiple times already. I don't fault the investors. If you can make a buck and feel morally superior while doing it, who wouldn't? Some of you say you wouldn't, but I'm not so sure. I fault the people cheerleading these systems like they're flawless. The people who post hashtag ESG on LinkedIn and pretend the entire thing isn't just corporate theater with a recycling bin out front. It's not that these tools can't be useful. It's that right now they're mostly performative profit machines. And the only thing getting cleaner are their balance sheets. And that's the part that makes this whole thing so damn infuriating. It's not just the green banks, the ESG investors, it's the virtue signalers shouting at everybody, climate crisis and change, and then they're sipping on champagne, beachfront property. Obama warns about rising seas from his oceanfront estate. Bernie rails against corporate greed in between flights on his private jets. AOC calls it code red for humanity, and then votes for bills that shove money into the same institutions that she's claiming to fight. These are the people being championed as climate warriors. But ask yourself, who's actually benefiting? It sure as hell isn't the people stocking shelves at Walmart or paying $400 a month for an electric bill in August. So while America's busy writing massive checks in the name of climate action, let's talk about what the rest of the world is doing. The exact same thing. Except it's not a coordinated plan to save the earth. It's a subsidy arms race. Everyone's just throwing money at green industries, hoping to win gold in virtue Olympics, while quietly flattening up their own industrial giants. Here are some receipts. We'll start with China, the undisputed king of climate contradiction. They roll out flashy incentives for electric vehicles and solar, but they're also building 2 new coal plants a week. I said it. 2 a week. So while you're over here being shamed for using a plastic straw, China's cranking out coal like it's 1890. Then there's the EU, patting itself on the back for the Net Zero Industry Act, which basically bribes companies to build green tech in Europe instead of shipping jobs to Asia. It's protectionism dressed in climate robes. Spoiler, it's the big companies that win that game. It's not mom and pop solar installers. It's not the dude trying to make eco-friendly insulation in his garage. And let's not forget, I had to bring it up, the Paris Climate Accord, the international climate group project where the US got to do all the heavy lifting while countries like China and India got a take your time pass. We fronted billions, cut emissions, and played by the rules, while the world's biggest polluters got to keep polluting under the banner of developing nation status. Not sure why China got away with it. It's like we showed up to a group workout and we're the only ones who didn't fake the reps. This is not global cooperation. It's climate capitalism on steroids. And the ones getting paid are the same corporations that already control half the grid. What people don't understand is that that's why Donald Trump got out of the Paris Accord. It had nothing to do with research and fucking climate change. We were being screwed. The same investors who used to make their money off oil, now they just put a green sticker on it. So again, I ask, who's winning? It's not the planet, and it's definitely not the people getting lectured on carbon footprints while global supply chains burn jet fuel 24/7 to ship solar panels made in coal-powered factories. This isn't about sustainability. It's about who can grab the most cash before the panic cools off. So after all this money flying around, you'd think we'd at least have a stable plan, right? Some kind of long-term climate roadmap. Because if there's one thing Congress does well, it's overpromise and underdeliver on a timer. What we have is a revolving door of executive orders, tax credit whiplash, and political yo-yoing that makes it impossible to know if your rooftop solar system is a smart investment or just future scrap metal. Case in point, the Trump administration's recent move to claw back $7 billion in rooftop solar grants. And before you panic, let's get something straight. This is not Trump trying to bulldoze the sun. This is about calling out bloated, corrupt, and ineffective programs that throw cash at companies with no results, no accountability, and no actual return for the taxpayers. And the backlash to Trump was immediate. Critics screamed that he was attacking the planet, stealing jobs, and single-handedly ending the world by 2030. But maybe, just maybe, this is what it looks like when somebody actually questions where the money went. That's what he does. He's a businessman. When someone says, hey, we gave you billions, what'd you do with it? That shouldn't be a weird question to ask. This is what happens when you treat energy policy like political football. One side installs the solar panels and the other rips them off the roof. Meanwhile, the American people are stuck footing the bill for a tug-of-war between hashtags and headlines. It's not about clean energy. It's not even about climate change anymore. It's about control, credit, and cash. And the environment? That's just the backdrop. So after all the screaming, spending, and virtue signaling, let's zoom out for a second. We've been told this whole climate push is about justice, equity, saving the planet, helping the poor, securing the future for our kids and our grandkids. But if you actually follow the money, it's not going to be the single mom in Cleveland that benefits. It's not helping the welder in Phoenix or the farmer in Nebraska. It's going to corporations, lobbyists, real estate developers, and nonprofits with million-dollar boardrooms. It's being packaged in ESG portfolios, funneled through green banks, and redistributed to the already comfortable. Meanwhile, the average American is told to shut up, swap their gas stove, and thank the government for a $300 rebate on a $12,000 heat pump that they never even asked for. And the people cheering it all on, half of them don't even realize they're props in someone else's business model. They're so busy shouting at everybody, climate emergency, we're going to be done by 2030, blah, blah, blah. They don't notice that they're justifying a system that makes the rich richer and tells everyone else to ride a bike and eat bugs. Look, I'm not anti-environment. I've said that a few times. I believe we should be smarter, cleaner, more responsible, but that doesn't mean suspending common sense when money's involved. It doesn't mean blindly handing over power, that money, and policy to people who have zero accountability and 10 times the hypocrisy. Because this isn't about the earth anymore. It's about leverage. It's about using fear to consolidate influence, redirect public funds, and create a new class of winners under the banner of doing good. So if you're out there wondering who really wins from all this, it sure isn't the planet. It's the people who figured out how to monetize panic. And if you need proof, just look back. We've been fed panic predictions for decades. New York underwater by 2010, ice caps gone by 2015, global catastrophe by Tuesday. Yet here we are. We're still standing, still spinning, still being told that this time, it's really going to be the end, unless we hand over another $1 trillion. At some point, you have got to stop and ask, is it about saving the planet, or is it just moving the goalpost? I'm not saying we shouldn't do the research, that we shouldn't work on cleaner energy, cleaner oceans, better systems. Of course, we should. That's not the argument. That's just called progress. But what we've been sold is not progress. It's panic and more panic. It's shame disguised as activism. It's believe the science, shouted by people who can't really explain the science. But they will absolutely shame you online for not buying a $70,000 electric vehicle or gluing yourself to a highway. You want to clean up the world, start by cleaning up the bullshit narrative that says anyone who asks the questions are the enemy. This is Stay in the Gray Podcast. If you're tired of panic passing for policy, share this episode with someone who still thinks solar panels save the world. As always, subscribe, like, leave a review. The 5-star on Spotify helps out. Let's move on together. Let's talk about these things. It's not as simple as virtue signaling and screaming at everybody. There's more to it. And until we call it out, nothing will change. So I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.